Hey everybody, I'm Jeff Wall. This is Lingo Sports and we have another MMA countdown video for you, but we are changing it up for this one. It's actually our first ever MMA top 10 countdown video. And for this one, there's not going to be any criteria because of the subjectivity of this one. It's our top 10 MMA personalities. So we're going to take a look at what makes these people unique, what makes them different and original from every other person you see out there. And for once, just this once, we're going to ignore, let's just say the shittiness of some of these personalities. But don't worry, we also used other people at Lingo to help me create this list, and we also took into consideration what the general public thinks of these people. But before we start, just make sure to give this video a quick thumbs up, share it, and of course subscribe to Lingo Sports for more great videos like this one. Now, to start this one off, let's get things going with the MAGA supporter himself, Colby Covington. Colby Covington does one thing well. He stays in the news. Whether you love him, hate him, think he's a fraud, or just plain boring, Covington has drawn the ire of fans during his MMA career. And one thing you can't deny is his effort. Going to lengths to be the first fighter to ever meet the president in the White House, willing to take a boomerang from Fabricio Verdum. Sure, it hasn't resulted in a massive Twitter following or anything. Yes, he's definitely offensive and very cringeworthy, but there's something to admire about someone who ensures you have a strong opinion on him at all times. When you think of the most recognizable faces in the UFC, you probably think of a few names. Let's say Dana White, Joe Rogan, but maybe the one that might spring to mind the most is the one with probably the best catchphrase, Bruce Buffer. What can you say about Bruce Buffer? The man has built his own unique brand, all through 2 words. Time! The flavor he adds to the cage is synonymous with the branding of the UFC, a fine mixture of professionalism, intensity, and a little James Bond-esque class in all his suits. Starting out as a telemarketer, a career that helped him track down his long-lost brother, boxing and WWE announcer Michael Buffer, and as a consequence became his manager and a staple of the fight world himself eventually. Outside the octagon, he is as real as it gets. Buffer once scrapped former top lightweight contender Frank Trigg in an elevator after Trigg karate chopped Buffer's neck. Buffer also once tore his ACL during the George St. Pierre-Jake Shields fight in Toronto, and there's a barely noticeable yelp mid-introduction. Ever the professional though, he finished the event. Buffer could easily take the title of most interesting man in the MMA world. This dude started his MMA career a little bit later in life. He debunked the idea of him being a PED user, and now we're all just trying to find out where Yoel Romero is hiding the fountain of youth. Yoel Romero came into MMA as a decorated Olympic wrestler, winning silver for Cuba in 2000, defeating other gold medal winners including the legendary Penn State wrestler Chael Sonnen. A fighter's style is largely tied to his or her personality. Yoel's is usually very inactive until the moment he explodes with his awesome ability. You can also find a lot of those similar awesome moments in his interviews. That'll tell you a lot more about him than I ever could, so let's just have a listen.
When you believe, everything is possible. You have 2 hands.
To be honest, after that, what else could I say about this man? He's weird in the best possible way. The king of cringe, Henry Cejudo, is, well, let's just say, he's weird. I don't know what else to say about him, to be completely honest with you. Henry Cejudo. Man, I don't even know where to start with Triple C sometimes. He always speaks in such hyperbolic ways, making things sound so much bigger than they actually are. Even at the start of his UFC career where he missed weight and just repeatedly explained to Ariel Helwani on the MMA Hour how his body was built to cut weight and it finally failed him, how he was ready to commit to the 125-pound division, all this for a very painful half an hour. and we learned absolutely nothing, if not how weird this man is. Then you have all his terrible, cringy call-outs, all the pre-fight antics with stuffed animals and pillows, the snake that he used to mock TJ Dillashaw. The only reason why he didn't make this list is simply because of how short-lived all this was. Well, I mean, time will tell. We'll probably see Triple C again. I got a feeling. At number 7, Khabib Nurmagomedov is one that the casual fans took a long time to grab onto. But the hardcores have always seen the quirky, funny, and brash side of the man from Dagestan. Khabib Nurmagomedov is an absolute legend, carrying the mantle for the Republic of Dagestan, Russia. Although all Dagestani fighters have had tons of success in MMA, none have done it quite like the Eagle. When it comes to his training methods, Khabib has been wrestling bears since he was a kid. And for cardio, he swims upstream in freezing rivers. Y'all cannot tell me you don't think that is wild. He plays this version of basketball that employs absolutely no dribbling, which would probably benefit me, to be honest, and takedowns. Weird, right? But it's all part of his charm. He's never been afraid to talk smack either, though, even in English, which is not his first language.
Talk about, like, we don't know, maybe Conor make different decision. This is number one bullshit. I think all Irish fans understand who deserve this.
Nurmagomedov is for sure not afraid to throw down any place, anytime, including a brawl with the Diaz brothers during a World Series of Fighting event, and of course there's the infamous brawl at Madison Square Garden after the Conor McGregor win. Khabib's only going to be around for a little bit longer though, by the looks of things, so enjoy it while it lasts, everybody. There's one man who is considered the man responsible for bringing the brightest spotlight onto Anderson Silva and maybe even a little bit of the MMA world, and started a new wave of trash talkers, the former Republican Party's own Chael P. Sonnen. Guess it's too bad those fights didn't go that well for him. Okay, so this is where I remind you that we are looking past some of the bad parts of these personalities. Chael Sonnen has been, to put it nicely, an asshole. But that's what fans have both loved and hated about him, making him a draw during his career in the cage, and his strong opinions have also benefited him massively outside of the cage, becoming a staple of ESPN's MMA personalities. Of course, his big shot with that was the Anderson Silva fight, and we'll get to that, but we also got to mention that he's gotten under the skin of multiple fighters, like Vanderlei Silva, John Jones, and Tito Ortiz as well.
Tito always says I'm using my mouth to get my opportunities. The only person I know that made money in their mouth is his ex-wife.
But for the Silva fight that got him all the acclaim, he insulted his entire country of Brazil, his coaches, his teammates, his style, his bowing, and even made jokes about his wife. Like I said, he's an asshole. What helped though was that he had Anderson on the brink of losing his title. This was while Anderson was looking absolutely invincible. Chael dominated him for 4 rounds during their first fight until he got submitted. He also handled both Silva losses with class. All of this in a lot of ways has paved the way for trash talking in general in the sport as a serious way to make money. Colby Covington himself has drawn direct inspiration from Sonnen, especially in the ways to trash talk, how to get under an opponent's skin and really push the envelope. And in some ways also knowing when to cut it out and just pay respect to your opponent who just whooped your ass. But as we've all seen, only a few can really do it like Chael P. Sonnen.
No class.
They don't call you the bad guy for nothing.
Alright, we're about halfway through this countdown, but there's no way we could keep going without mentioning Joanna Jędrzejczyk. Still to this day, one of the more unique personalities we've ever seen in the sport. Speaking of trash talkers, you rarely see champions trying to get the mental edge like Joanna Champion did during her reign at the top. Brash, cocky, and always able to back it up. Joanna didn't let her language barrier stop her from letting the world know how confident she was and how she felt about her opponents. Joanna Violence has shown no mercy in and outside the octagon. Okay, I'm sure some of you are going to be mad at the fact that we have Conor McGregor coming in at number 5, but let me just tell you that you should consider yourselves pretty lucky that we even let him in on the list. Regardless though, hey, I can't deny it. He's very, very popular. I probably don't have to explain too much about the biggest star in MMA history. McGregor has a mastery of trash talk, a quick wit, and an elegant speaker. Most MMA fighters are simply no match. McGregor certainly has a personality and a bravado that cultivates an audience. First in Ireland, then Boston, and the rest of the world. He of course draws some hate with the general disrespect frowned upon by martial arts purists, and for some comments he made that have definitely crossed the line. McGregor always knows how to make an entrance, either with iconic outfits worn by popular figures like Joe Frazier, or just all-around class with his massive wardrobe of suits of all kinds. He of course was the first MMA fighter to get a high-profile boxing match. In fact, when it comes to his fight with Floyd Mayweather, high profile may not even do it justice. Sure, we can pick at the level of his accomplishments all we want, but there's no doubt he's the biggest star this sport has ever seen. In many ways, like Khabib, Jorge Masvidal wasn't widely recognized by fans for his incredibly unique persona. But for Street Jesus, this past year has done a lot to turn some heads. Jorge Masvidal has fought just about everyone, and he's been doing it for a long, long time. Masvidal started his scraps back in the days of Kimbo Slice's backyard fights. He's amassed a record of 35-13, dating back to 2003 when he was just 19 years old. The saying, "fight anywhere, anytime," is probably one of the most overused phrases in combat sports. Let's be real, fighters want to get paid, and few are like Khabib, as mentioned. But watch how you act around Gamebred, or you may catch his 2-piece and a soda combo like Leon Edwards did backstage. You probably wouldn't think this was even possible for an always relaxed guy like Masvidal to go off like that. But the thing is, Jorge has always been this guy. It just took a long time for y'all to take notice. His swag has been undeniable. You may not like that he supports Donald Trump, but hey, not all Trump supporters are created equal, right? One thing is for sure, I'm never eating pizza the way I used to again. Now you may ask, is that necessary?
They were super necessary.
Why were they necessary?
What do you mean, why were they not necessary?
All right, this one was really tough. We debated this one over and over and over again, but in the end, the UFC president Dana White does not make the list. Despite being ever present and one of the most important figures in the sport, there's just something about him that didn't make the list for us. This is not us hating on Dana White. Let me just make that clear. We all recognize how important he has been to the sport. It is undeniable. You could even say he is the most important person in MMA history, because he has had a hand in a ton of the biggest moments, signings, and so on. However, is Dana really a unique character like the others mentioned? Really think about it. He's not afraid to offend anyone. Sure, he has said some outlandish things. Sure, he's in the spotlight more than just about anyone the sport has ever seen. But he's not that crazy unique like Donald Cerrone, Khabib, or Buffer. In many ways, he's an aggressively opinionated loudmouth promoter. But that isn't really unique when you think about it. It's not that wild or really that original ultimately. He's the boss, and that's cool and all, but I don't know if he fits the list. And y'all are free to disagree. When you really think about it, this guy has one of the most unique and interesting lifestyles we've ever seen in MMA. The man known as Donald Cowboy Cerrone certainly lives up to the nickname like few other. Donald Cowboy Cerrone. This is the kind of dude you tell your kids about if you're an MMA fan. The cowboy lifestyle goes way beyond the hat. The dude lives a wild life. He's an adrenaline junkie. Name something dangerous, he's probably done it. Bull riding, skydiving, hunting, RTVing, surfing, snowboarding, anything. This man has done it. Sometimes he even does it the week of the fight. Cerrone does not have a shortage of crazy stories either. Have you ever noticed the scar on his stomach? That's from an RTV accident where his stomach was ripped open by a tree branch. He had to carry his guts until he could get to safety and get stitched up. He's never been afraid to step up for last-minute replacement fights either, or short turnarounds. He even built his own gym called the Bad Motherfucker Ranch, where he still lives the more ordinary parts of the cowboy lifestyle. It was actually tough not to give him a higher spot on this list, if I'm honest, because he's just that wild. All right, now for number 2. We have the boogeyman, Tony El Cucuy Ferguson. This man is unlike anything we have ever seen, maybe across the world. So let's cherish this man while we still have him in this sport today. Ferguson has been an absolute gem of a character. Every interview with the man is a guaranteed soundbite. He always seems like he's got a massive chip on his shoulder as he's talking to Ariel Helwani or Luke Thomas, as he fiddles with this tennis ball consistently in his hand in every single interview he's done during fight week. And things he say are as profound and wild as his training methods are. It's hard to think of anyone with the regiment Ferguson puts himself through day in and day out. Flipping over any object he can find, using more traditional martial arts practices. He even incorporates some movements that seem to be like a throwback to his breakdancing days, which is also a very random background. Oh, and of course we can't forget about him trying to sharpen his bones on metal pipes. Or the power racks he uses for his elbows. Now, whether we think that actually works or isn't damaging him or causing a lot of the injuries that he's had, Tony is always ready to prove to you how serious he really is. His dedication to his training and his convictions are always on display, like making weight with no actual fight to compete in, working so hard on his cardio that he busted a lung, even starting a fight with former heavyweight champion Fabricio Verdum, threatening to ankle pick him, which I don't know about you, but I have never heard that used as a threat in my life. But it all just adds to who Ferguson is and why we really love him. And now, finally, claiming our number 1 spot on this list is the man with the biggest podcast in the world with some of the most absurd opinions you have ever heard. Yes, that's right. Number 1 is Joe Rogan. And you know that hurts me, so you're welcome. Rogan established himself on the show Fear Factor, was a reporter for the UFC in the early days, but didn't get his big chance until he showed off his true personality on Fear Factor. Rogan himself competed in Taekwondo and kickboxing, so he does have some martial arts background to begin with. With all that, he became the UFC's color commentator alongside Mike Goldberg. What makes Rogan so different from all the other commentators is he is unlike any other sports commentator. He doesn't rehearse anything. Everything you hear in the cage is off the top of his head. So you get his pure emotion and his wild opinions, which at times didn't make him the best partner to Goldberg or really anyone's sense. He made an even bigger joke out of the mistakes that Goldberg will make, which didn't help his credibility. He'll also go on long rants about one narrative in a fight like leg kicks, or the importance of wrestling in MMA, or Diamond MMA's steel cups, never letting the other commentators get a word in. There's next to no topic Joe won't go on incessantly about, which is why he ventured into the podcasting world with the Joe Rogan Experience and also his stand-up, where he gets even more outlandish and ridiculous, with his fame vaulted into another stratosphere where his ideas and philosophies have been put on the biggest stages in the world, in turn probably helping the popularity of MMA as a whole. And Joe has been sort of the gateway into MMA for many casuals or some of us hardcores as well. For the most part, Joe's breakdowns of the game have been very easy to understand, and to many he comes across as a very real and authentic personality, maybe more than just in MMA, but in the entire world of media itself. And don't worry guys, I do actually recognize that. Now that we're all done, leave a comment below and let us know what your personal favorites are, and we'll see you next time. Take care.